This here is an example, a very simple one, of what we call a flow map. And what this is doing is showing the mean center of the United States population over time. And so we have each decade the mean center being shown as a triangle. Now I could say this is a flow map because if we think about, if I go ahead and put lines connecting each of these, what it would do is it would show the flow of the population. If we look at the mean center of the population by decade, has steadily moved west, but more recently started to move south. Thus, we're understanding a little bit about the flow. Now, once again, if I had maybe instead of this semi-transparent boundary, I had lines connecting each of these individual points, we might be able to see that flow better, but nonetheless, a very simple way to kind of start thinking about how points combined with lines can help to show movement or flow. So that's what we're going to do here with different types of flow maps. We're going to be showing movement between places. This is usually done via points and lines. We can think of an origin or a destination as the point, and the lines that connect those 2 points, we can show movement, we can show a path, we can show the flow between those particular places. Now, in terms of what do we show? We can show qualitative differences, so categorical differences. For example, if I'm looking at international flow to Indiana, I could say people from Asia will use a certain color, people from Europe will use a certain color, people from South America will use a certain color, and so on. So what we can do is we can show categorical differences amongst flow, but we can also show quantitative differences between flow, showing the thickness or the magnitude. For example, we could say, well, in the case of Indiana, most of the visitors, most of the migrants to Indiana are, let's say, from Latin America. So then the arrow or the line that connects Latin America to Indiana is going to be much thicker than, let's say, maybe a map that shows Australia and its flow to Indiana, or another maybe a less populated area of the world that's far, far, far away from the Indiana border. There are 4 different types of flow maps out there. So the first one is a network flow. And so think of that like a subway map in which it shows the flow, the connections between origins, destinations, and how I can get from one destination to another by going through one. So network flow, we've already looked at examples of those. But essentially what we're doing is we're thinking about connectivity amongst more than one place. Radial flow, that's where we have one place and typically have outward or coming in a range of other points out there. So we think about all the various students that go to IUPUI. So what we do is we would then show a radial flow by showing their hometown or their home area, a point, and then we would have it going to IUPUI's campus. And so all of the individual students, all of their lines are going to go from their hometown to one point, and that one point would be our particular campus. A distributive flow is going to show that more of the magnitude. It's going to distribute in terms of, okay, here we have large numbers of people going in this particular flow, this particular path, from this particular origin to this particular destination. But over here, we don't have as much. The population is maybe not flowing as at the same magnitude, and so would be represented by a thinner line on a particular map. Continuous flow is kind of a newer idea in which we show flow using a continuous surface, and this oftentimes is going to utilize animation. So I got a good example to show you what I mean in terms of a continuous surface flow. This is kind of a cool thing. I'm really just kind of coming back to this just because, hey, look at Indiana. So right now we are in the median center of the population is right now in southwestern Indiana. And so look how much of our time as far as having this median center of the population, but what it's doing is it's showing this essentially the pattern. Like I said, we connect the lines and we're just showing the movement over time. And so this is just showing how the median center of the population has been in God's country for a good amount of time. This would be a good example of, once again, a network flow map in which it's showing the flow. And notice we have the qualitative difference based on the particular public transportation line that's being shown here. Now, this is a fictitious rendering. This is kind of a what if. Indianapolis had a metropolitan-wide transit system, so it's kind of cool to look at this and kind of think about whether or not this works, but this is also a great example of, once again, simplification. These particular lines aren't precise, but that's not the point of it. And so, once again, a subway map is a good, simple way to show network flow. This is a radial flow, which is akin to something you'll see on a future exercise. And so what this is it shows where all the destinations, where essentially the jobs are for people who live in Jackson County, Indiana. And so this is radial flow. And so this is essentially all the places in which people are going to in Jackson County to find their workplace. And most of it, of course, is going to be there in southern Indiana, but you do have some exceptions, maybe down in Chattanooga, Memphis, Chicago, Milwaukee looks like, D.C., so it could be a congressperson, perhaps Oklahoma City. So that's a hell of a commute to Denver. So some of these commutes are maybe more examples of telecommuting, but nonetheless, it shows radial flow in this instance. This is a website called flightconnections.com, and here we see a radial flow map for the Indianapolis airport. So this is all the destination airports that are a direct destination, not an indirect. And for example, you can get to Louisville, but not directly from Indianapolis Airport, according to this particular map here. This is nonstop flights from Indianapolis. So here is a radial flow map. This is a particular distributive flow map that was made way back when by Charles Joseph Menard from Francais. So what this is showing is, of course, like the French, they're very concerned about their French wine exports. This shows the flow of those particular exports. Where are they going? And so we can see a good amount are staying within Europe, particularly up to Northern Europe, where you see Great Britain and Scandinavia, and then, of course, Belgium and the Netherlands, for those of you who know your geography. Also, a lot going to Africa, a good amount, of course, going to next-door neighbor Italy. But then you see other flows, Argentina down here, Buenos Aires, but also around to the western part of the United States, but also to the eastern part of the United States, some flow. Hardly anything going to Canada, actually more going to the Caribbean than Canada. And then it looks at hardly any here going to the northern part of South Africa and, of course, Brazil. But nonetheless, this is showing distributive flow in terms of the quantity, the magnitude of French wine exports. Where is it going in terms of its flow from its origin being France to its destination? Another example of a distributive flow map is one we see here that depicts the Atlantic slave trade. And what it also does is it shows numerous origins to numerous destinations, which of course we can do with a particular flow map. Once again, it does show distribution in terms of value or magnitude by the thickness of a particular line. So we see this particular pattern in terms of the arrows pointing to. That's a good example of when we want to use arrows to show things. We want to show arrows to show the direction that something is headed to. So what we know, okay, this here is the origin, this here is the destination. And what it does show is it shows the large majority of those Africans that were slaved and then brought over in a forced and mass migration did so from the western part of the continent, very few from the eastern part. Further, a good amount went to South America and the Caribbean. And a little, it actually shows that the flow to the United States was much lower compared to other parts of the world, other parts of the Western Hemisphere. And so the Atlantic slave trade, as just depicted here, is an example of a distributive flow map. Here I'm going to show you a particular map animation. It's, I guess, an example of a flow map, and precise, maybe a network flow map in terms of if you get into this particular taxi, your route, your flow is shown. So if you don't get into this particular taxi, then you're never going to be in it. So you're not going to be in that network, let's say. But what this is doing is it's showing the origin and destination of a bunch of taxi rides. I'm going to go ahead and put this a little bit faster and then fast forward to the morning time when we start getting more trips. And so now this taxi is starting to make a lot of trips. And so when we talk about map animations, the rate of change, the magnitude of change, this would be an example where we got too much going on. It's too fast. The rate of change, you can't really see what particular pattern. You can follow kind of, if you're trying to do that. If this is something which you're trying to show the public, kind of this particular person's route. In this case, it's a little bit too chaotic. And so the magnitude of change, too much is happening, but also the rate of change happening too quickly. Here's a continuous surface flow map, and this is what's really nice about it's pretty much big data and computers is we can essentially have this real-time information all the time, because as you'll learn with web maps, one characteristic is they're pretty much always on. You can't really control when they're on or off per se. So in this case, we see particular weather patterns. This is showing wind. And for teachers, for educators, my gosh, this has become such a more powerful tool. How do you explain the global pressure belt system before this? I mean, it's nearly impossible when you're just using essentially circles and drawing H's and L's to stand for high pressure and low pressure. So with these flows, not only does it show direction, we can see the flow of the wind. And of course, this is exaggerated. You wouldn't be able to see this or feel huge gusts like this at this particular speed. It's definitely exaggerated, but nonetheless, it shows areas where there's more flow, areas where the flow is faster, and that's going to be actually shown where with the colors. So if we go ahead and crank up on this scale here, and so it looks like green. So the green is 60, 70 kilometers per hour is what the green is insinuating. And so there's other things we can do. We can also look at ocean currents. This is pretty cool, looking at ocean currents. And so one of the things is you'll note particular patterns and with our ocean currents, and ocean currents are so important for just climate, but particularly there along coastlines. Other things you can do, particulates, so you can actually show the flow. It makes sense. If you have an airborne particulate, then you throw in the wind, you can then, of course, then predict where that particulate's going to go and not go based on the overall wind patterns. This is really cool. So here, once again, a continuous surface flow map.